Hi, welcome back to Frankly Wines in the Time of Corona. This is our third tasting in a series of, God knows how many. However, today is April 2nd and yesterday, April 1st, is a very special day around here. That is not just because it was April Fool's Day, but it's also because it marks our anniversary of the second coming of Frankly Wines. So Frankly Wines was originally started in 2007 by a woman named Christy Frank, who is a friend and a wonderful colleague in the industry. However, she was looking to move on, and so in early 2017, myself and Connor, who's manning the camera right now, and I couldn't live without him, we were able to take this over, and our first day of official business was April 1st, 2017. So it's always kind of a celebratory day for us. And considering we were in Piedmont, it worked perfectly because Piedmont loves bubbles. Specifically, they're known for making a lot of classic method sparklers, which could also be called method champenois. And so it kind of made perfect sense to just pop a bunch of the wines that we love from this region that happen to all be sparklers because, hey, we're celebrating. So quickly, I want to make sure that everybody is aware what we mean as far as the production of these wines. So Italy is obviously known for another wine, Prosecco, which everyone has obviously had. There's a big difference between a Prosecco and something that's made in the classic method or the champagne method. So basically, in both of these situations, you need to first make a base still wine. Usually that's a wine that you might pick the grapes as early as late August or in early September, because it's very important that that base wine has a lot of acidity, because in the end it's going to need to go through years, sometimes many years, in the bottle before it's actually released as a sparkling wine. So that base wine has really got to be just kind of driving the acidity. So you make a still wine from that very bright, high acid young grapes, and then you will bottle it. So if you're going to do a classic method, you would bottle it into one of these sparkling bottles, and then you would add a bit of yeast and sugar and cap that bottle. The yeast and the sugar starts a second fermentation. The byproduct of that second fermentation is CO2 or gas, bubbles. So basically those bubbles all get trapped in the bottle, whereas in a normal fermentation, they'd escape into the air. They get trapped into the bottle here. Now, the fact that then most of these style wines get aged in the bottle on what's called the lees, those yeasts, usually a minimum of like a year and a half, up to sometimes a decade, means that you end up with all this great nuance because everything's trapped in this bottle here together. The yeast, the sugar, it's all kind of bringing together these great secondary flavors and nuanced aromas that will dance into toast and brioche and bread because it's yeast. Now in Prosecco, what's called the Charmat method, the same process technically takes place. However, it happens in a giant pressurized tank that literally has enough liquid to bottle hundreds of cases of wine. So they start that process because it's heavier, the yeast all falls to the bottom, everything hangs out on top, and then they bottle it nice clean sparklers right off of the top of all those yeast, the lees at the bottom of the tank. This is a lot less time consuming, whereas with these type of wines you need to basically work and disgorge each bottle individually. With Prosecco you can just kind of bottle it all ready to rock, but it also didn't get that time with such direct contact with the lees, which is why it's a little bit more light and fresh. So moving back to the style of wines we're going to be tasting today, because all of these are done in the classic method, we'll kick it back off right where we left off. We're way up in Alta Piemonte. This is going to be Erbeluce di Caruso. So Erbeluce is a local grape that is made up right near Carema. So the Carema was that second Nebbiolo we had. Erbeluce you see as both a still white wine, which tends to be pretty dry. It might have a little bit of kind of white floral, some citrus, but a very, very mineral, mountainous white feeling. You also can sometimes see it as a sweet wine where they actually lay the grapes out to dry, to shrivel up until they're like little raisins, and then they press it, and the must is obviously greatly reduced, but it's very thick, and that's when you get those beautiful, viscous, sweeter, a little can be syrupy, but again, the acidity kind of cuts it. Here we have a classic method sparkler, and Cieck, this producer, he's kind of like the guy who's known for making some of the best sparklers in this area, and he's also one of the people who really drove this style of production. So technically speaking, he first bottled this in 1985, the San Giorgio. He does 36 months, 3 years on the lees. So after he makes the still wine and adds these, it ends up spending 3 years on the lees. This is a 2016. Now, because of that, it gives it a little bit more of this soft, in this situation, creme brulee, but you still feel the Erbeluce through it. Like, you still get the beautiful white flower, just this beautiful, like, mellow pear, white flower, very, very kind of chalky and soft, but then you get this little creme brulee, soft vanilla bean note, which helps you know that this was a wine that did classic method, because it wouldn't be there if it was just a tank method. Honestly, this is a wine that you could absolutely start apart, like just start as an aperitif with. You don't need to have food. If you were gonna have some food, I would say you could do this with a great like little goat cheese or a cheese plate in general. Anything that's gonna kind of play up that herbaceous white flour thing, and also it's delicate enough that you don't wanna overpower it with heavy cuisine. Same time though, I mean, it's $39 and on the shelf, and for all that work, it's just a really, really solid example of an alternative grape being used to make a classic method sparkler. So, I'm going to take that moment to say alternative grape. What does that mean? Well, in Champagne, they're known for 3 main grapes: Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Those are the classic grapes that are done to make Champagne sparkling wines. There's a couple other local ones, but by and large, those are the grapes. So the next one that we'll be tasting, I'm all the way down in the Langa, which is the hotbed of wine activity in Piedmont. This is where Barolo is, this is where Barbaresco is, most Barberas, Dolcettos, Ruques, you name it. This is where you're gonna find just vineyards everywhere and just a very, very dense population of winemakers. Now down here, again, they still love sparkling wine. You don't need to be in the mountains in Piedmont to love sparkling wine. They love it everywhere. And in this situation, this producer is actually super old school. This is Enrico Serafino. The winery was established in the Roero, which is across the river from Barolo, in 1878. And for the first 100 years, their family remained in charge of this winery. Now, at this point, it has been sold. However, they still really are totally up to snuff on their quality. And they always, even though they could, down here, some of my people did sparklers from Moscato, like Asti Spumante, they always wanted to focus on Champagne grapes. So this is actually 80% Pinot Noir and 20% Chardonnay. Now, they are super into the lees contact though. First off, the base wine, they do a batonnage for 6 to 7 months on the lees. That's just the still wine before they put it in the bottle, and then it spends 42 months, that's 3.5 years, in the bottle on the lees. This is $25 on the shelf. Crazy value for the amount of time and work that has gone into this. However, you immediately off the nose know this had some very intense lees time. Why? Because it smells like bread. It's got a total bready, almost almond nuttiness going on to it. I mean, I don't see this in a bad way. Like, it has a very champagne-esque nose. It's a 2015 vintage. And honestly, it has so much more density to it, and that is certainly from not only the lees time pre the second fermentation, but also the extended time on the lees afterwards. So again, making it more in a champagne style by using Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but it still has this beautiful kind of, Italian, it still feels very food friendly, very Italian. And again, the fact that it's 25 bucks on the shelf lets you know champagne would never do that. They would never put this much time into a bottle, and they would never put it on there. So do keep in mind, Italian sparklers, they really can give you a huge bang for your buck. Now, also of note, Enrico Serafino, just like Cieck, these were people who drove the DOCs for sparkling wines in the region. So now, on to numero 3. Finally, we're doing a little rosé. So, scusi, I didn't break my Rosato, everything's fine. This is Ettore Germano. So this is a winery. They have been in Langa. Damn, I thought I wrote that down. Again, a very, very old family estate. I think 3rd generation now. Most of their vineyards are in Langa d'Alba. This is kind of cool. So this wine was born out of the fact, all right, so if you're making Barolo, you're probably not harvesting till October or November. Well, back then it used to be November. Now it's October, late September with global warming. But in, early September, you're gonna do what's called green harvest. And you're gonna clip some of the bunches from your grapevines because you want to, for that last month, make sure those vines really, really focus on the quality of that last really solid bunch that's gonna be your Barolo. But he felt bad dropping this perfectly good fruit. So years ago, I think it was 2001, he was the first time he attempted to make a sparkling wine from the Nebbiolo that he was dropping. And honestly, this wine blows people away. And even in the tasting here, it's actually the most delicate. So this is entirely Nebbiolo coming from mainly Langa d'Alba. I don't know that it's 100%. Most of his vineyards are there. He does do just 18 months on the lees. So that's less time than either of the other wines, but it is just the most beautiful, delicate. It's a very pale pink, as you can tell. The nose is just like wild strawberries and roses. You still feel that this is Nebbiolo. God, but it's just, this wine, and this is actually, it's 29. It's right in the middle price-wise. But even still, for $29 for a bottle here, you are just getting such a beautiful expression. You couldn't get a bottle of Barolo. You get a half bottle for 29 bucks. You won't get a full bottle for $29, especially not from a producer that's this notable. So, God, that's gorgeous. All right, well, I know what I'm bringing home with me tonight. It is also, I should notice here, an extra Brut. Basically, at the end of that second fermentation, it is eaten through all the sugar. So all wines finish as a Brut Zero, as a Brut Nature, and you can add a little bit of the grape must back to bring a little bit more of the sweetness. In an extra Brut, that lets you know that they are letting it really err on the dry side. At the same time, it's not aggressive. It really just shows the nuance of the grape, and honestly, I would drink this most days. This is such a lovely everyday option if you really enjoy drinking sparkling rosé wines. Okay, that's all for tonight. Next, we're gonna dive right into that Langa. We're gonna be talking the odd grapes, the Nebbiolos, what's to love, what's not to love. It's gonna be a lot of fun, so join us next Tuesday when we head back to this. And for now, I'm just gonna sign off and keep drinking my sparkling Barolo. See ya.